It's sprint weekend at Imola, and there are but mere hours between when free practice session ends and when qualifying starts, which is when your fantasy teams lock. And you need last-minute decisions and insights to make your team. You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Pit Wall, your stop for fantasy Formula One content. You can like and subscribe for more content like this. I'm J-Jack, and let's go. We're going to start off by looking at the weather forecast. Right after FP1 ends, we still have some remains of precipitation. If we look over here, it's going to be dropping off. Currently at 82%, it's going to be dropping off. So we're probably going to be in the intermediates threshold as it pertains to the type of tires we're going to have. The wind seems that it's going to be very consistent once we get around qualifying. I feel like a weatherman. Let's go to Saturday. It's going to be a little bit more windy. Precipitation is just as low, and the temperatures are going to be in a similar window. When we get to Sunday, though, precipitation now is going to be a higher percentage, but it's probably be on and off. The winds will be faster like on Saturday than they would have been on Friday. So that's our brief weather forecast. It seems that we're going to be getting some on and off conditions. Probably not slicks all the time. Probably an intermediate or wet if it actually starts to downpour. Speaking of inters, this is where I'm going to share with you this data that I collected during free practice session 1. On the left-hand side, we have the fastest times set on wets before it stopped raining. Notice that Vettel had already switched over the inters, which put him fourth fastest. And then, if you look at the final times at the end of the session, where most people were on inters, with the exception of Hamilton, who said on the radio to his team that he was not able to get the temperature up on the inters fast enough, had to only set his time on wets. That's alarming for Hamilton if it's going to be going into qualifying with inters on. But let's look at those comparative positions. We see the Ferraris are dominant on top, followed by the two Red Bulls. Vettel is showing how important it would be for him to be able to switch on his intermediates. Of course, he has that benefit because we didn't include his wet time for the first one. So he's probably much lower than you would expect. The McLarens, along with Alonso, those are your guys that are going to be performing quite well with your intermediates, followed by the AlphaTauris. Then we get the consistent Ocon, who has been in the points every single race this season. It's fascinating because you see how the Haas's were P4 and P5 at the intermediates, but they're 3 seconds off the pace of Leclerc. But you see that their normal averages, if you factor in how they were in the wets, they are farther down the order. So this is what you got to realize is if it looks like there's going to be no rain for qualifying, then you've got intermediates. And that's where this data, I'll put the link in the spreadsheet in the description below, but this is where this data becomes important. This now means that if there is a chance for the rain to mess things up during qualifying, you want to make sure you've got a safe driver. A lot of them are spinning around. But because there is a sprint after free practice session 2 tomorrow on Saturday, then that means you're actually going to get the dry times. The problem is that your team for fantasy locks now, today, not tomorrow. So you want to pick a driver that you think is going to be consistent and reliable, which brings us now to that number 2 guy at Ferrari. Carlos Sainz got his contract extension 2 more years, and he got a brand new engine, his second for the season, so there's no penalty or grid drop coming. So notice that he's going to have a really good, powerful engine, which makes him at the top of the class, not just in the wet, but probably also will be able to hold on to P2 during the race. Unless suddenly somebody like Perez or Verstappen can surprise them during the sprint race or during the race itself. This now comes to the big question that many people have been asking me, do I mega drive this race? You want to use your mega driver when you have the most potential points. Here's the issue. If you're going to mega drive Leclerc, who seems to be the fastest in the wet and probably also in the dry, who are you going to then turbo? Well, if Sainz is going to be consistent and has a brand new engine and isn't going to spin it around, then that means that you could probably mega drive Leclerc and turbo Sainz. Now, here's the caveat. Yes, it is a sprint race weekend, and yes, you can get probably a max of 16 points. If you're Leclerc, you get pole position during qualifying, finish the sprint in first, get the fastest lap, and go win the race. That's max points. It might be safe to use his mega driver when he has his qualifying race streak, what I call power streak, when you can line line both up, which would be a guaranteed 15 points for just finishing in the top 10. If there's not going to be all this wet weather come Saturday and Sunday, then you're probably going to have the standard order, Leclerc with the Verstappen, and then you have Sainz and Perez somewhere in there. But that is now why we have to look at what is best for our teams today. Here we have my two teams. I did some really good day trading on the left with 105.4 million. I've got 4 free substitutions left because I used my wild card, and because PlayOn froze the system, I was not able to get Russell, who was peaking close at 96%. Wasn't able to get Leclerc 80%. We have these other drivers. As you can see, this is my day trading opportunity, so now I need to change that out. On the right hand side, I have a value of 104.4 million. I used my wild card after the first race. I've got 1 free substitution before they start charging me. So let's start off with team 2. Of course, I'm going to keep Leclerc and I'm going to keep Sainz. I'm also going to keep Perez and Magnus and Ferrari. So the question is, do I keep Alonso on? If I have 18.5 million left over, who could I pick up? See, this is where day trading comes in. No, actually, I own all the guys. So then it's a decision between Norris or Alonso. Norris or Alonso. Both are very good in the wet. Put in the comments section below who you think I should put in, Alonso or Norris. This card. Now to the big one for team number 1. Now, I'm not going to make any changes in the case that sentiment is able to kick in and I can get all these peaks. If not, then of course I'm going to switch Haas to Ferrari. Yes, I understand that I'm over budget. Russell is a good option. We're going to drop Ricardo. We're going to pick up Sainz, and I'm 14 million over. So if I'm not going to have Russell, then that's where I have to make the decision about Perez or Russell. Let's wipe the slate clean. Of course, we're going to get Ferrari out here. We know for sure Leclerc will stay, and we know that Ferrari will stay. On the left-hand side, we're going to put Sainz, who seems to have the second best car. Then on the right, it's a decision between Russell and Perez. Perez has 61 points. Russell has 87, but look at the cost cap difference. Now, if Russell peaks, then I can then switch him over to Perez, no problem. But if he doesn't peak, then I have to decide. But I have a larger budget. So let's say Russell is going to be there. Then that leaves me 19 million left over. Whereas if I pick up Perez, then I got 25.5 million. So if we look over here, who are going to be our 2 supporting drivers? If you like Norris in the wet, great. If you think Magnussen is going to be good, you can pick him up, no problem. He's super cheap. But let's see if I've got 9.6 million, who I could squeeze on here. I could pick up Bottas. He had a spin and went off the track right at the end of free practice session 1, but probably no damage. But it all depends on if Bottas or Magnussen seem to be better. It seems like Magnussen had better Inter's pace, but that could all change over the course of a race. But here's the thing, Magnussen shows that if he's got the pace, he can keep other cars behind. So put in the comments section below. It looks like there's a lot of potential changes and options for your lineup. I like to promo for you our 1 race challenge for Imola. 49 people have signed up. 3.5 hours remaining before teams lock. If we can get above 50 to join our league, then we can be entered into the large leagues. This is where you enter 1 team, 1 opportunity. And if you are the top 3 scoring teams, then you get a special podium ceremony at the end of our next fantasy podcast. And also, you can get your name on our leaderboard. And there we have it. Now, there are only a couple hours probably between when you are watching this video and when your team is going to lock for qualifying today. So if you want to continue this discussion, follow the Pitwall on Twitter or join our Discord. Links are in the description below. And until next time, I'll see you on the Pitwall.